Hi, this is Linda Lang with Make It Now. I'm going to be continuing something that I started a while back on how to trim a focal point with beads. I want to show you some examples. This is the one we're going to be working towards. And if you'll notice, the beading is on top of the focal point. Now I showed you how to make this in another video, so make sure you look at that and how to make one of these to prepare for beading. And so what I've done is you'll notice that it has layers that go up, and then they go up and over to hold this in place. This is what we're going to do today. I want to show you what we started with before. Is I actually had you make a heart cabochon, and then I showed you how to trim it with the beads. And this one, you just do it around it, you don't come on top of it. So that's another video you can watch to make this particular one. And you'll notice I got first prize on this one at the state fair, then actually the Amador County Fair. Then I had this one that I made, and it has a lot of beads hanging down, just really loosey here. It's just beautiful. But I had this metal piece, and I just turned it sideways, and I trimmed around it, and I put it on my felt, as you'll see on my previous video. But I got first place and best of division with this piece. And then I had this piece of metal. This was actually a belt, a piece of a belt. I took it apart and I glued it down and I began to bead around it. I got second place on this one. Okay, so there's a variety of ways you can do it. You don't have to make this. You can, but if you have pieces of metal or whatever, you can just glue it onto a heavy-duty felt, not the light felt, a heavy-duty felt. Not the kind that peels either. Don't get that. Get just the regular felt. You can get these at Walmart. So I started to show you a little bit on how to make this one. Now I'm going to give you this example. This is the example of what we're going to be doing. You see this design here? I thought it was interesting. It looks almost like a seascape or a landscape or even a planet. So all I did was I took some cardstock. I had these pieces, and they're absolutely gorgeous. They're a little heavy duty. And then I used a hole punch, and then I just made my punches. And then you can look on my previous video on how to make one of these. It has layers of cardboard. It makes it look like it's on a piece of wood. It's beautiful. And then I used triple thick and put the gloss on top of it like that. You can do layers of it so that you can make it domed if you want. I just put it there and kept it flat. Okay, so again, we're going to make something like this. You'll notice that it has tiers. It's got 1, 2, 3 tiers here, and the third tier goes on top of the focal point. All right, so I started working on this one, and I had to stop the camera because I forgot to put on my microphone. So I'm into making this one right now. And what you do is you get your supplies together, of course. And in my case, since I have yellow inside here a little bit, you can see just a tad of yellow. I'm using yellow beads, yellow seed beads. Then I found these little tiny beads, and I don't know the size, but they're smaller than the seed beads. And so I have these as well, and they're orange, and they're going to mix into this color design. Now in this one, I used purples, and I used silver, and I used burgundy. I just use a variety of colors on this one. The little burgundy, you can barely see them, but those little burgundies are those little teeny tiny beads. They go in between the bigger beads and pulls the top together, and I'll show you how to do that. Then you get your beading needles. Now, I use 2 beading needles. I'll tell you why. Because this beading needle goes through these holes. It's smaller, it's a thinner needle, so I keep that with that. This needle is a little bigger, it's heavy duty, and it goes through my bigger beads. Now I can use the smaller needle for all of it, but I like to use the bigger needle. It's easier to handle and grasp and put through. So I have my beads, I strung my thread, of course, and I brought the thread up from the back to the front. Okay, and I tied a knot, of course, on the back, and then I brought the thread up through the front. And then all you're going to do is you're going to start taking your beads and just trim that center focal piece. And so I'm going to use yellow, and I'm using yellow right now, and I'm putting it on a table. It's easy to get to. I can just pick them up with my needle. 1, 2, 3, 4. I do 4. And sometimes I do 5, so you can do 4 or 5. I'm going to do 5 so I can go a little faster. So then you just lay it down, connect it to the previous, lay it down, put your needle at the end of that bead and pull it through the back. The other thing I did, if you'll notice on this one, you see how it's square? I cut the square parts off the edges because the thread keeps getting stuck on those corners, so I cut it down. You can do that as well. All right, so I have it in the back, and now what you do is you take your needle and you come back up. You can come back up right on the outside of the second bead in. You can come right in the middle or right on the outside of it, and I come up on the outside of it. It seems to be the easiest way. Then I pull the needle up, and then I take it and I go back through the last 2 beads that I added, just like that. And then I pull my string through, thread, and it tightens it down. So I'll do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Lay it down. Let it just lay down. You don't have to push it or anything. It lays down by itself. Put the needle at the end of that bead. Go to the back and bring the needle back up, and then bring it back through the last 2 beads. If it seems a little loose like this, that's okay, because when you pull this, it tightens it all back down. I'll do it one more time, and then I'll do the rest off camera. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'll do 5. Just let it drop down. Take your needle, put it at the end of that row of beads. Come back up to the outside of that bead of the last 2, and then come back through those last 2 beads. Yeah. So I'm going to finish this off, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I went all the way around, and what I did on the last bead is I just connected it through the next bead and brought my thread to the back. Okay, so now we're ready to do the next layer. You're going to want to go upward. So how you do it is you can start anywhere in between a bead, and go through a bead so that it starts properly. So make sure you're in a bead. Okay, go in a bead. So this is coming out of a bead, all right? So just take a look. It's coming out of a bead. Get it ready for my next layer. Now in my next layer, I can use the same color or I can use a different color. I think I'm going to use the same color all the way through this. And now what you do is you get a little creative. You take a bead and you see where the thread's coming out of that bead, and you count 1, 2, and you put your needle through the third bead. Pick up another bead, count 1, 2. Put your needle through the third bead. You see how it's going up now? It doesn't look good, but that's okay. We'll get it straightened out when we get it to the next row. You pick up another bead, count 1, 2, and put it through that third bead. Pick up another bead, 1, 2, pick that up. And keep going all the way around. See, all my beads are kind of sitting up on there. Pick that up, count 1, 2, put it through that bead. Pick another bead up, count 1, 2, put it through that next bead. And gonna go all the way around, and I will be right back. You'll notice I'm at the end, and I have 2 beads until the next bead right at the end. Now, if I'd had 3, I would probably add another bead just because. So now what you do is, since we have all these beads sitting up like that now, we are going to connect the beads with other beads. And I like to use the same beads, or actually I'm going to use a different color bead. I'm going to use something different. Has a little bit of a brown tint to them. Now, I'm really at the end of my string here. I don't want to try to start a project and then it, mess me up. So all I do is I take my needle, go through the back, wherever I'm at, and then just make a loop in the back of it and tie it off. So you go through a little bit of the backing. Don't go out here. Make sure you're inside the stitching area and go like that, and then maybe do it twice, and then just bring the thread right back through and then cut it. And when I get a new thread, I take the end and I tie a knot. You take your needle now and you start from the back. You can start wherever one of these are up. So I'm just going to start here randomly. I'm just going to put my needle through the back and find one of those beads that's sitting up and put my needle through it. So now I'm ready to go, like I didn't stop, okay? So now I take another one of I'm going to use my new color bead. I'm just going to use one. Okay, I use one and then go to the bead that's standing up. The next bead that's standing up. Pick another bead up, go to the next bead that's standing up. Pick another bead up, and then pick the next bead that's standing up. Okay, so far, this is what it looks like. See, it's already got I've got a layer going up, and then I have the nice color bead, and then a yellow, nice color bead, yellow. So we have got another layer up that way. You'll see it's up, going up, but you'll notice that there's little spaces in between these beads, and there's a reason for that. Now we're going to fix it. And that's where these little tiny beads come from. We use these beads now, okay? And I'm going to change my needle, keep my thread on it, but I'm going to change the needle to the smaller needle so that it'll go through those beads. And since this is a wide enough container, I don't need to dump those out. I can just pick the bead up by putting my needle in, and it picks a bead up. Then I just go in between, and then I go to the next bead that's sticking up. That. This little bead's going to pull everything together. Pick one up, go to the next bead that's sticking up. It's probably going to alternate between the yellow and the burgundy-ish color that I'm using. So now look what it's doing. It's bringing it together like that. Next one. Just one bead. Put it in there. The next one. There. How when I pull it, it brings it right on top of it. It's no longer along the side, it's on top. So the smaller the bead, when you do this part, it cinches it in better. Okay, just put it in that last bead that I added. Keep going around. Sometimes it looks like there's a bigger gap, but when you pull it, it brings the beads right on top. You see, it brings the beads right on top. Don't worry about that gap. Just go to that next bead that you added on that last row. It should stick up a little bit to help you out a little bit as well. And you want to do that all the way around, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I did all my little orange pieces, and it brought it, and I pulled it tight. You pull it tight so that it holds the cabochon in. And then at the end, you want to go back through the bead in front of it. You can go through 2 or 3 of them, whatever, and just pull that thread through to finish it off, like that. And then you take your needle and push it back down inside. But you make sure, before you pull it all the way, make sure you have pulled this tight. The tighter, the better, okay? There's that. Now I'm going to tie it off on the back just to make sure it's secure and tight. You cut off the thread on the back. Now, you could actually bring a whole bunch more in. You can keep going and keep going and keep going and make it a nice, secured area here. So now what we do, since you got that beading done, you'll notice that this is cut. See the difference? This is the same size circle, but because I used bigger beads on this one, it pulled it in more, didn't it? I used smaller beads on this one. I could probably go another row on this one, but I don't think I'm going to. I really like it like that. So now what I do is I cut and trim the edge, but don't cut your thread, okay? No, you want to give yourself some space. So I give myself about an eighth of an inch all the way around. Because now what you do is you simply do the same thing we did on the other video. You can stop here if you want, because that's all there was to this video, or you can continue with me as I finish off this necklace. Okay, so we've got 2 of them going on here. I can pick whichever one I want to do, and I'll be right back. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one. Now what you want to do is, and I actually got a couple of these out. These are so much funner to use than making your own. Now I did my own here. See how I did the beads up from here and I made a loop for the necklace? But I'm going to use these instead. It's just simpler. That's what I did here, the sample that I'm going to show you today. I used that. Now what I did was, when I finished, I glued it to the back. That's tacky. Don't you think that's tacky? It's still beautiful. You don't see it. But I'm going to put it on the inside so you can't see it. And so you want to select the back, and you see you can just make a mess off the back. You're not going to see it anyway. But we can use faux leather. This is like a suede. And you just cut a circle out matching it. That's going to go on the back. You don't want to put felt against your skin. You want something more soft. And then I also have pink. Oh, that's pretty. And I'll put the wrong side on here like that. Okay, and then cut this out. Or I found this beautiful stuff. Wow, I'm going to use this, I think, just because. just because I can. Let's see, here it is. This is, you can buy this fake stuff for very inexpensive. Just buy a half a yard, and even a quarter yard works. You can make a bunch of these. So I'm just gonna put this, not on the front of it, I'm gonna put it on the back of it. So let me just cut out a square. I'm gonna cut out a square out of this. Okay, get this out of the way. And because I do not need to glue it all the way to the edge, because we're going to bead it together around the edge. For example, here's a sample. Let me just use this one. Okay. So you'll notice that I cut a piece of the felt a little farther out, 1/8 of an inch. Then I put the back onto it, and you'll notice that now the beading holds the front and back together. Okay, we're going to do that. So you just want to take some E6000 glue, just glue a little bit in the middle, you don't need much, and then just plop it on here and let it sit. So I'm going to do that right now, and I'll be right back. Okay, so I did go up and get my E6000. It's got a little, I like these little tubes. And then I'm just gonna, on the back of this one, I'm just gonna dab a little bit in the middle. Just enough to hold it. Doesn't need much. And it stinks. I don't like the smell. So what I'll do is I'll put it to the wrong side of my circle. Doesn't matter what you do, just stick it on there. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut out the shape of this right to that outside circle, right to it. And then this is when you get one of these things. Now there's a way it goes. See how it goes in? Let's see, you can put it on that paper. See how it's flat and then it loops out. You want the loop to go forward. And you want to find out how you want it to go. You want to go like this. I think it's like this. Then I'm going to stick this inside between two of those, like that. And then I'm just going to glue it in there. And that's why I only glued the center, so that I could do this. I can maneuver it in there. So I'm going to use the glue on both sides of this. Now I'm going to take this, open this up, and put it inside. Make sure it's nice and straight. It's not like a glue that secures quickly. You can maneuver it around a little bit. That's exactly where I want it, just like that. See how the back is flat, and then the front has the loop. So you hold it down. Okay, so I am back, and I was able to glue this inside. Makes it, woo, isn't that pretty on the outside too? Mm-hmm. And because it's got a little gold in it, that's why I did the gold on the back. I'm also going to add a different color to the edge. I'm going to use platinum gold. That's what this looks like. And so I'm going to start at the top, and I want to put my needle inside and go towards the back like that. So my knot is on the inside, and I just push it in to make sure it's in there. Bring the thread up on the right side of that finding here. And now you take one bead, and you, from the back, you go up through both pieces, but at the edge, not too close to the edge, because you want to grab it a little bit so that both front and back are connected. Now you take this finger. Now again, you can watch my other video because I do this exact same process, but I'm just going to go ahead and do it since I'm working on this necklace. You take your finger and you push it up so that the bead is sitting up like that. Then you take your needle and you go back up through the bottom of the bead. Okay, so if I put this back in here and my needle is straight up, the bead hole is facing up. And that's what you want. Okay, so I'll just draw this and the bead facing up. And we're going to do that all the way around. So then you pick up another bead and you go from the back to the front. Use your other finger to push it up. And then you go back up through the bead. You see? Okay, so it's coming out. So then you take another bead, go from the back to the front through both pieces. Use your back finger to hold it in place. And then go back up that bead. And that's how you bring both together. And if I see I'm using a gold piece, it matches the back. You can't even see the threads. So I'm going to go ahead and do that all the way around and I'll be right back. All right, so now I'm at the end. I've put it all the way around. That looks pretty, doesn't it? It pulls in the yellow from the inside. And I put it around the edge there. And so again, my thread's coming out of that hole on the top. Pick up another bead, go from the back to the front. And it gets a little tougher up here because we put that metal inside. So you have to really feel for the front and the back and sewing through it, because you don't want to hit the metal, you don't go nowhere. So just work around it. And then I'll have one more bead and I'll just do it right at the top edge of it. There. The string goes up through the bead and we're done. So now what you do is you turn it around and you just do a couple of loops on the inside here so that you tie it off. Now that is a cabochon. We're ready. Isn't that pretty on the back too? We're ready to make the strands. We're ready to make the necklace piece. Again, this is just how to do the beading. If you want to watch the other one, I linked it down below to go ahead and see how I add on the fringe. Now I'm going to go ahead and do this off camera. Enjoy. Have fun making these. They're a blast.